Let me ask you a question. Have you ever looked at your life and thought, did I miss it? Like maybe you took the wrong turn, made the wrong decision, or dropped the ball too many times, and now the purpose God had for you has expired? What if I told you your calling is still intact? You might have lost your confidence. You might have walked away from the plan. You might even feel like God stopped calling your name. But I came to tell you He hasn't changed His mind. Your mistakes didn't cancel the mission. There's a lie that the enemy loves to whisper and sometimes shout into the ears of people who once walked boldly in their calling but now find themselves limping through life. It says, you messed it up, it's over. You had your chance and you blew it. And if you listen long enough, you'll start to believe it. You'll start to believe that God's plan is as fragile as your last failure, that His purpose over your life is somehow canceled because of a moment of weakness, a bad decision, or a season where you lost your way. But let's get something straight right here. God doesn't build purpose on your perfection. If He did, nobody would qualify. If you think your mistake disqualified you, maybe you never understood grace to begin with. Grace doesn't just get you into your calling, it keeps you in your calling. We often assume that when we fall short, God walks away. But have you ever considered that maybe the moment you fell, God stepped closer? Not to shame you, not to condemn you, but to remind you that the mission hasn't changed. Think about Jonah. God gave him a clear assignment. Go to Nineveh. And Jonah ran. He didn't just mess up. He went in the opposite direction on purpose. But even in rebellion, God didn't revoke the mission. He rerouted him, but He didn't reject him. Jonah tried to cancel himself. God said, nope. I still said Nineveh. You can delay it. You can resist it. You can even bury it for a season. But when God puts a call on your life, it sticks. He doesn't go back on His word just because you went off course. He's not surprised by your sin. He's not shocked by your struggle. You think He didn't see it coming? You think when He called you, He didn't already know every twist and turn you'd take? Let's go deeper. Peter was in Jesus' inner circle. He saw miracles with his own eyes, walked on water, declared Jesus as the Christ. And yet, when the pressure hit, what did he do? He denied even knowing Jesus, not once, but 3 times. And right when most people would have disqualified Peter from ministry, Jesus goes out of His way after the resurrection to find him, restore him, and reaffirm the call. Feed my sheep. Jesus didn't say, let's forget everything. I'll find someone else. He said, I knew this was coming. I already made provision for it. Let's move forward. Why? Because the calling wasn't built on Peter's record, it was built on Jesus' purpose. And the same goes for you. What God started in you wasn't based on your spotless behavior. It was based on His unstoppable will. We live in a cancel culture that tries to erase people over their worst moments. But God operates in a redemption culture. He takes your worst moment and turns it into part of the message. You're out here thinking God wants to use your highlight reel. But God wants your scars. He wants the messy middle. He wants the part of the story you try to hide. Because when He uses that, nobody can say it was your talent or your resume. They'll have to say, only God could do that through someone like you. Let's be honest, you may have made some choices that set you back. You may be carrying consequences that you created. But consequences are not the same as cancellation. God's purpose may take a different route, but it's still on track. And just because you feel disqualified doesn't mean you are. God doesn't call the flawless. He calls the willing. Delay is not denial. One of the hardest things to deal with in life isn't a no from God, it's a not yet. Because at least with a no, you can move on. You can close the door and start fresh. But when it's a not yet, you're stuck in the tension. You're waiting, you're praying, you're believing, but nothing is shifting. And that's when the doubt creeps in. That's when the enemy starts messing with your head. If it was really from God, wouldn't it have happened by now? If you were really called, wouldn't you already be walking in it? If He was really with you, wouldn't things look different? But I need you to hear this loud and clear. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. Delay is not denial. God's timeline is not your timeline. He doesn't move according to your deadline. And just because it feels late to you doesn't mean it's late to Him. We live in an instant world, instant noodles, instant notifications, instant answers. But God is not a microwave God. He's a slow cooker God. He knows how to let things simmer until the flavor is right, until your character can carry what your calling requires, until you're not just ready to step into the blessing, but ready to sustain it. Sometimes God holds it back not because he's punishing you, but because he's preparing you. You're asking him to open a door, but he's strengthening your legs so you can walk through it when it opens. Look at Abraham. God promised him a son. Not a vague symbolic blessing, an actual child. And Abraham believed. He had faith. But then year after year went by and nothing. No child, no progress, no sign. Just delay. Until it got so long, he tried to make it happen himself. That's what delay does if you're not careful. It pushes you to force what God wanted to fulfill. And when you try to force something that's meant to be birthed through faith, you get frustration instead of fruit. But even after Abraham's mistake, God didn't cancel the promise. Even after the delay, Isaac still came. Because when God speaks, it doesn't expire. It may take time, but it doesn't die in the waiting. The delay isn't just about time, it's about transformation. God does some of his best work in the silence. When you're in the in-between. When the people around you don't see the promise, but you still have to carry it in your heart. That's where faith gets built. That's where roots go deep. That's where you become who you were meant to be. Jesus waited 30 years to start a 3-year ministry. Think about that. 30 years in obscurity. 30 years of being the Son of God but not stepping into public purpose. 30 years of knowing who he was but holding back until the Father said, now. If Jesus had to wait, why do we act like waiting means something's wrong? Waiting is not punishment. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is part of the process. God delays because he loves you too much to let the blessing come before you're ready to bear the weight of it. And don't confuse someone else's early arrival with your missed moment. God's not running out of purpose. Just because they're getting married, just because they're getting the promotion, just because they're walking in what looks like your dream, doesn't mean God forgot you. Your delay is not God forgetting you, it's God forming you. He's working behind the scenes, shifting things in the unseen, preparing the stage for something greater than you even imagined. You're still chosen even in the chaos. It's easy to believe you're chosen when everything's going right. When doors are opening, when prayers are being answered, when the path is clear and the peace is obvious. But what about when everything falls apart? What about when the plan you prayed for goes up in flames? What about when life looks nothing like the promise? That's when the lie shows up. If God really chose me, why would it feel like this? If I was really anointed, why is everything falling apart? If I was really in his will, why am I in this storm? But here's what you've got to understand. Being chosen doesn't exempt you from chaos. In fact, sometimes the evidence that you're chosen is the very fact that hell has turned up the volume in your life. You think the chaos means you missed it, but sometimes it means you're right in the middle of it. God didn't say the path would be peaceful. He said the calling would be powerful. And sometimes that power is forged in fire. Ask Joseph. God gave him a dream, a divine picture of leadership and influence. But the very next thing that happened, betrayal, a pit, a prison, years of injustice and silence. From the outside, it looked like he had been rejected. But heaven had already stamped his life with one word: chosen. And here's the truth that messes with our expectations. You can be in a prison and still be in purpose. You can be surrounded by confusion and still be right where God wants you, because chaos doesn't cancel calling. The disciples were in a storm in the middle of the Sea of Galilee, waves crashing, boat shaking. And guess who sent them into it? Jesus did. The same Jesus who knew the forecast before they launched. The same Jesus who saw the storm before they saw the water. He sent them into it. Why? Because there are some lessons you only learn when your comfort is gone. There are some things you only discover about his power when your own strength isn't enough. The chaos isn't always the enemy's doing. Sometimes it's divine disruption. God shakes what can be shaken so what can't be shaken will remain. You've been praying for peace, but maybe God's using the chaos to pull purpose out of you. Maybe he's allowing the storm to silence every voice but his. Maybe he's proving to you that even in the mess, even in the uncertainty, even in the pain, you're still his. You're still chosen, even with tears in your eyes, even with anxiety in your chest, even with questions you don't have answers to. The enemy wants you to believe that chosen means comfortable. But biblically, chosen often looked like confusion before it looked like clarity. David was chosen as king, but before the crown came, he had to face Goliath, dodge Saul's spears, hide in caves, and wait in the tension for years. He was chosen, but he was also chased, challenged, and crushed at times. Being chosen doesn't always look like glory. Sometimes it looks like grit. Sometimes it looks like holding on when everything in you wants to give up. Sometimes it looks like standing in a battlefield with nothing but a sling and a little faith. But here's the beauty of being chosen. It doesn't depend on the calmness of the circumstances. It's not based on the approval of people. It's not fragile. It's not seasonal. It's sealed by the voice of God. And no storm, no betrayal, no diagnosis, no delay, no failure, and no level of chaos can ever erase what heaven has spoken over your life. God's promise outlasts your performance. Some of us have been living like God's promises are on a timer, like His plan for us is held together by how good we've been this week. You prayed on Monday, so you're confident. You messed up on Wednesday, so now you're hiding. You served on Sunday, so you feel qualified. You doubted on Friday, so now you're scared He changed His mind. We treat God's promises like they're performance-based contracts. But He never called you based on your perfection. He called you based on His purpose. And His promise doesn't expire when your performance slips. God knew exactly who you were when He made the promise. He knew the full picture, the inconsistencies, the weaknesses, the pride, the fear, the wandering. He doesn't need the approval of others to affirm what He placed inside you. He doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect. He moves in the imperfect, the broken, the surrendered. This is your reminder that He still wants to use you. He still has more for you. He still calls you chosen, anointed, appointed, marked, and sent, right here, right now, just as you are. It's not too late. You're not too far gone. And no part of your story is wasted. You are still called. You are still chosen. You are still His. And the call that God put on your life, it's not fragile. It's not temporary. It's eternal. So get back up. Start walking again, because your calling is still intact.